when we avoid discomfort, it also has another cost, because often the discomfort that we are avoiding is closely linked and in the same direction of something that we love.
Why are we so burnt out?
We can become burned out when we're putting a lot of energy into things, but especially when we're putting a lot of energy into things that don't matter to us. There's a lot of things that we're using that are pulling us out of our bodies to try and give us metrics for some things that we should also be checking in with our bodies for.
Dr. Diana Hill is a clinical psychologist, international trainer, and best-selling author. Drawing from the most current psychological research and contemplative wisdom, Diana bridges science with real-life practices to help people grow fulfilling and impactful lives. Why are we so burnt out? Why do so many people feel so unfulfilled right now? It's kind of like an epidemic. What's going on?
Well, burnout and unfulfillment are actually two separate constructs in psychology. When we look at burnout, we often look at contextual factors in psychology, like maybe you have too much work and not enough resources, or you're in a toxic environment. You have a lot of stressors on you. But this piece around fulfillment is an important part of it. It's a separate construct, which has to do with meaning and purpose. We can become burned out when we're putting a lot of energy into things, but especially when we're putting a lot of energy into things that don't matter to us. And we have more and more expectations around going faster, producing more, creating content, and maybe not all of that is really where our heart is at, or what's sort of where our values are at, and that can contribute to our burnout as well. So the way that I look at burnout is there's an individual inside you element that maybe you've lost a part of yourself, and then there's also a contextual element. There's all of our environmental factors that are burning us out, the stressors of the world and our lives and our unhealthy environments.
It's like a perfect recipe, I think, right now, just with the kind of societal construct of things and also just the pace of things as well. And I think even though it's well-intentioned, to dive into our work, to provide for our families and to achieve, to strive, we can quickly find ourselves, questioning, like, why am I here? What's all this for? Feeling burnt out, and I tie them together, but I'm so glad that you mentioned, like, these are two different kind of psychological constructs. They often come together, but they have different core issues. And this is one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you, is that you are so good at getting to the core issue. And what you're doing for us today, and this was really timely for me as well, is you're directing us towards utilizing what you call wise effort as we're interacting with our work, interacting with our relationships. There's a way to go about it that we don't have to have all of that kind of negative wake that comes behind a lot of this stuff. So can you talk about wise effort? What is that?
Well, I think most people could just hear those words and think about a time in the last 24 hours when they've engaged in unwise effort, and a time in the last 24 hours when they've engaged in wise effort, what that means personally to them. If you were just to reflect on that. The term itself, wise effort, is actually from Buddhist psychology. And it comes from the Eightfold Path. So Buddhism has all of these numbers. It's like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And part of the Eightfold Path is what is the path to freedom? What is the path to awakening? And on that path, there's things like wise livelihood, like what you're doing right here. It's pretty wise livelihood. You're using your energy wisely at work. There's wise speech. Are you being kind? Are you being truthful? And then there's wise effort. How are you using your energy? Are you using it in ways that are compassionate, that are aligned with your values? Or are you using it sort of like spinning your wheels, just putting a lot more energy into something that really doesn't matter to you and can result in burnout? So that's the term wise effort. But then I have a whole method that is more rooted in psychological science, because that's sort of my blend. I take a consilient approach, which means I draw from contemplative practice, I draw from psychological science, and then I draw from many, many years of working with clients to help them get back on track and get more aligned.
Speaking of Buddhism, one of the great teachers is kind of, again, adjacent to that is Thich Nhat Hanh. And I've had the opportunity to learn some of his work as well. And you share a great story on perspective in your book about an experience he had getting a question from somebody who was kind of questioning what they were doing. Can you talk about that? Share that story?
Thich Nhat Hanh has been one of the most influential teachers in my life. So I have this interesting background that I grew up going to Catholic school. My mom was Christian and my dad was Buddhist. And he would go every summer to Plum Village, to Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery. And Thich Nhat Hanh is probably the most influential Zen Buddhist master that has brought Zen Buddhism to the United States, but done it in a very secular way. Done in a way of just basically the reason why we have mindfulness here and why it's been so proliferated. So when I was in my 20s, I was 19, and I was really struggling. I share a lot about sort of my personal struggle with striving and how it's gotten away from me many times in my life. And I went to Plum Village for the first time, which is his monastery in France. And he was giving a Dharma talk, which is a talk where they share sort of the wisdom, the teaching. And he was answering questions from the Sangha, the community was there. And one of the members stood up and said, I'm a soldier. I think it was during the time of the Iraq War. And now I'm learning about mindfulness and I'm becoming more conscious. And what should I do? I don't want to go back. I don't want to be, in a tank. I don't want to be behind a gun. And what Thai said to him was, you are the very person that should be there now that you know what you know. And I think about that in terms of, yes, I mean, that's like a big ask, right? For a soldier to go back and be mindful behind a gun. But we could do that in other ways. I mean, maybe we need to go back into a toxic work environment. We can't quit our job, even though it's burning us out and we don't want to be here anymore. But could we bring what we know in terms of wise effort to the places that we're in? And then we're part of the solution. So sometimes context needs to change, but sometimes it's our own relationship with whatever is there, and using that wisdom to guide our behavior, no matter where we are, can make a tremendous change in our life.
Yeah. So you're saying we could change our perspective about the situation that we're in. We
can change our perspective, but sometimes it's changing also how we are struggling with or relating to, or even how we're showing up. So for example, when I was in graduate school, I went to University of Colorado at Boulder, and I was getting my PhD in eating disorders. And a lot of where this work came from was my own struggle with eating disorders, first anorexia, then bulimia. You can think about anorexia as sort of being like the Olympian of striving. Like you actually are doing everything to the nth degree of what you should do, right? And so I was in recovery from that. But when I got into my PhD program and I was studying eating disorders, I was researching them. I was running randomized controlled trials for people with eating disorders. I relapsed. And so I was on the clinical floor, PhD program. It's like 1% of the population that gets into this program, everything in my being to get there. And then I was going upstairs to the cognitive wing to go purge. And then going downstairs and running clinical trials. Oh my God. So that story that Thai told of like, how can you be in this environment and not shoot the gun? And maybe the shooting the gun is you're shooting it at yourself, right? So that was me. And I remember the day that I went home, because I used to go and like buy a ton of food and binge on it and then purge at the park and then go home, and no one knew. Like I was like the top stats student and all the things. And I remember driving home and I had all this food in my car. I had like Reese's Buttercups and Ben & Jerry's and the whole gamut. And I looked at my face and I saw myself in the rearview mirror, and I saw all the puffiness under my eyes, and I saw the swollen glands. It was the same faces of all of my clients. And I had this moment where I was like, wake up. What am I striving for here? And what is really important to me? And I walked in the door, and I remember my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, and I just passed him all the food. And I was like, I've got to let this all go. So I ended up withdrawing from my program. And I was lucky and smart enough to go to a program in Boulder, Colorado, which is like the mecca of spirituality. I ended up going to a yoga ashram, which was just a few miles up the mountain from us. And during that time, I thought, I'm going to go be a yoga instructor, throw this all away. I'm not going back. But like that soldier, I was like, well, wait a minute here. Maybe there's something that I know from this experience that will make me an even better researcher when I go back, an even better clinician. And I dug up at that time one of the only people that was doing mindfulness in eating disorders, DBT and eating disorders, which was Deborah Safer at Stanford. And I contacted her after getting into a better place in recovery and said, can I work with you? I want to figure out how to connect this with this, how to bring mindfulness to the research. And I went back and got my PhD in mindfulness-based DBT interventions, and then went on to lead a treatment center. So very much that story about the soldier was a story that I carry in my life now.
Thank you for sharing that. This was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about because you highlight, this is directly from your book, Wise Effort, pick up a copy today. Often, but not always, our genius is developed and strengthened out of the hardship, challenges, and changes we face in life. And you ask, can you think of a life challenge that may have contributed to your genius energy? Mm-hmm. And one of the funnest parts about the book, and I did the stuff, I answered the questions, and it took a while, it took a couple of days to answer the questions, but I got to know so many things about myself, specifically through clear language. All right. So there's a lot of stuff we do, we just do because it's us. But for me to actually pay attention to those things and to give them names and words was really, it felt really good. It felt like I knew myself a little bit more. And this idea of our genius energy is so powerful and empowering, but it can be a little scary too. So number one, can you talk about what our genius energy is? And then we can dig in on how do we uncover this, because you get some kind of archetypes, and then also how we turn our hardships into really powerful character traits and expressions in the world.
Well, I think anyone that's listening could describe Shawn Stevenson's genius energy. And then they could probably think about their best friend, and they could describe, what's that thing about their best friend that's like so unique to them, that makes them shine, that stands out? What do you go to that person to for help? And maybe they could even find genius energy in like their dog, So the word genius, actually, a lot of us associate it with Stanford Binet, or Einstein, and that's not the type of thing I'm talking about here. I'm talking about your je ne sais quoi. Like, what is it that makes you you? What's your life force? Going back to my yoga roots, what's your prana? The thing that is like energetically inside of you that lights you up from the inside out and attracts people to you. And when you're doing it and you're in it, things come easily to you. You're in flow. And then I looked at it from a psychological science perspective, and I actually said, okay, what is the science of that? Like, what are the components of that? What do we know about that? And I identified these 5 key components that keep on showing up over and over again in psychological science. One is character strengths. So this comes from Martin Seligman, positive psychology, the father of positive psychology. And your character strengths are things like leadership qualities. You have a leadership aspect to you. You have a character strength as well, Shawn, of being like very welcoming and warm. And you also have another aspect of you that it has to do with your personality. So that we know a lot of psychological science around personality, and that can be things like we were just talking about before, taking risks. How open are you to risks? How are you extroverted versus introverted? What's your Enneagram? Another aspect of your genius energy is your interests. What do you do? Here's a good one. When you were a kid after school, what did you just love to do? That's all you wanted to do.
For me, play outside, play sports, compete with my friends.
Yeah. So you have interests in competition, playing, and athleticism. right? So your genius energy is in the right spot when you're doing those things.
Yeah.
The other two aspects of genius energy have to do with your emotional intelligence and your natural abilities. So when those come together, it's sort of like, I don't know, like pulling the different colors together to paint just the right color that makes up you. Yeah. And when we put our genius energy and use it in a way that's aligned with our values, life opens up. We are not burned out. And we actually don't have this other thing that is showing up for people, which is bore out. You heard of bore out? It's another construct, right? So bore out is you're being underutilized. You're like in the workplace and nobody is actually putting something in front of you that's engaging, that you want to go for, that you want to work hard for. Because wise effort isn't just about taking more rests and relaxing and doing more yoga nidra. It's also about working hard in the places that matter to you. So when you align your genius energy with your values and you do it in a wise way, you are off to the races and things will open up for you and you will feel engaged in your relationship. You can put your genius energy anywhere. I talk about genius energy in the bedroom. Like, what's your sexual genius? And are you using it? Or has it gotten off track? Is it aligned with your values? Or maybe it's gotten out of alignment with your values. It's everywhere, this genius energy. But what happens is that there's all sorts of things that start to show up. And I think 3 things in particular that can send your genius energy off track. And all of a sudden, when it's off track, you get entangled and you can get burned out, you can get bored out, or you can be really misdirected with it.
Say more. Say more.
The 3 things.
Yes, please.
Can I do an example with you?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so can you think of a time in the past week when you felt like you were getting all tangled up in a problem and you really wish your genius energy could show up there, those leadership qualities, the warmth I was talking about, the athleticism or, playfulness that makes you you? Can you think about a time? You don't have to say specifically what it is if it's a,
Yeah, it just happened within the 24 hours, yes.
You can, okay. Yeah. In the book, I asked people to draw it, what it felt like in their body in that moment. So we're on audio or, I don't have a piece of paper. If you were to visually draw it for us, what was it like in your body?
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Yep.
Uh-huh. And like all like messy spaghetti or like at that Nobu restaurant where it's all beautiful.
Yeah, it was it wasn't super messy, but there was like some lines twisting up and getting a little tangled.
A little tangled in there. Where was that tangle happening in your body?
In my chest.
In your chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a tangle of energy, a tangle of spaghetti in your chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's usually 3 things that are tangling up that spaghetti. There's all the outside stuff that we want to blame. We say it's because of this and because of that. But in our inner world, there can be 3 things, 3 psychological things that we are doing that's tangling up our genius energy. The first one, in psychological science, we call it cognitive fusion. In Buddhism, we call it delusion. But in common terms, we call it being stuck in a story. So being stuck in a story, was there a story that was going on in your own head that was tangling up that spaghetti, that was getting in the way of you showing up as your warm, playful, leader, genius, Shawn self?
For sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was the nature of that story?
The story was, this shouldn't be happening right now. Yeah. And little sidebar is, I don't have time for this.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good one. Yeah. So this shouldn't be happening right now, and I don't have time for this. Right?
Yeah.
And when you believe that story to be true, like it's dominating. If you imagine you were to write that story in your hand and it's like right in front of your face, and the way that you want to act is in front of you, but you can't get there. When you believe that story to be true, how did it push your behavior around? What did it make you do? I don't have time for this, and it shouldn't be this way.
It pushed me into being more logical, like really leaning into logic when being more welcoming of emotion was more important.
Yeah. More important. Yeah. So oftentimes in an interpersonal relationship, that's really important that we are aware of emotion, or even a relationship with ourselves. So that's one thing that gets misdirects our genius energies. The human mind has a tendency to make stories. It's actually a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We can tell stories, we can share through story, we connect through story. But when we get all entangled in our story and we don't have the capacity to step back from our thoughts or say, oh, that's my story. And usually our stories have to do with like wanting to control something. They have to do with wanting approval, or they have to do with security, wanting to get safety in some way. The other thing that can really misdirect our genius, and maybe was happening then, is avoidance of discomfort. There was something uncomfortable happening and we want it to end, or we want to get away from it. We don't want to be in it. I don't like it. Yeah. What was the discomfort? And then how did you avoid?
For me, I was avoiding pain. You know, like it was a pattern that I saw, that I've experienced pain in it before.
Yeah.
And I think I still have a little PTSD from the experience that I had. And so I didn't want to feel pain.
Yeah. PTSD is a strong word to use with the psychologist, but you had a little, your body kept the score, right? So there's a memory, an embodied memory of, when I'm in this pattern, or when this pattern happens, it is a painful thing and I don't want to go down that.
Yep.
And so you may try
because
and avoid it.
Because the pattern is it has to go through to completion, and I'm going to be depleted at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then have to pull myself back up.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't want to have that happen again.
Yep.
You need wiser effort there. You need your genius self to show up for you, and you need some wisdom to show up for you. But maybe you haven't had that experience in that pattern fully, or don't feel like you can do it yet. And so we avoid that discomfort in really unhelpful ways. And there's, in the field of psychology, there's sort of two big consequences to our avoidance of discomfort when it's inner world pain, not outer world pain. Mm-hmm. Like avoid the pain of like getting your hand on a hot stove. But when it's your inner world pain, when you avoid discomfort, two things happen. One is usually the way in which you are avoiding discomfort creates another problem that is uncomfortable. So like if you're avoiding discomfort by drinking, or in my case, by eating or not eating, now I have my original problem, which was the stress that I was eating or not eating over. And I have the secondary problem of eating or not eating, having an eating disorder, right? So usually the way in which we avoid adds another layer of problems.
I think drinking is a good example for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's like an escape.
Drinking, smoking, spending money, going on your phone, all the things in which we do these avoidance behaviors that end up having secondary problems. But the one that I get really interested in, the other part of it, is that when we avoid discomfort, it also has another cost. Because often the discomfort that we are avoiding is closely linked and in the same direction of something that we love, something that we value, right? And so if we're doing like these mental or physical gymnastics to get around it, we're also getting around and not making contact with the very thing that we love. Think about parenting. I have 2 teenage boys. It's a lot of discomfort in our household, and lots of multiple reasons. But if I just detach myself and distance myself from it and stay busy, and so I don't have to experience whatever I'm experiencing, then I'm also detaching and distancing myself from my kid, right? So that's a consequence of avoiding discomfort. So were you stuck in a story? Were you avoiding discomfort? And then the third one that's, I'll say, were you stuck in a story where you're avoiding discomfort, which is called in clinical psychology, we call it experiential avoidance. The third one is, are you holding too tight? You're gripping too hard. You're getting rope burn because you're trying to control the situation. And when you are holding too tight to something, there's no room for whatever needs to flow through, for another person to participate in the moving towards something different or solving of a problem, because you are gripping to it. Were you holding too tight to anything, Shawn? You don't have to have all three, maybe not.
A little bit.
A little bit.
But definitely not. This wasn't the big the big one. But yeah, a little bit for
Yeah,
sure.
a little
I kept
bit.
on like, I loosen up and then I tighten, loosen up, tighten.
Yeah. So those are the three things that misdirect our genius energy. And the practice of wise effort is to be able to first get curious and spot them. Like, oh, and it's an intervention in itself to ask yourself, am I stuck in a story here? Am I avoiding discomfort? Am I holding too tight? And then the next step is, okay, how do I open up? How do I open up to feeling something? Maybe it's something that I don't want to feel. How do I open up my mind? That I just have one view in, but there's many different views here. And how do I open up my sense of self to a wiser sense of self that can be in this, whatever situation I am in, to help direct my genius so that it can be flowing more freely.
So it's like a inner check-in. But I would imagine you got to practice that because it sounds so good, you know, and to be able to do that, it's kind of like you're jumping back and grabbing the wheel again. But it's the practice, I would imagine. One of the things I want to ask you about related to this is what happens when our genius energy is, and you've kind of talked about it, like things that can kind of dampen it or like muffle it. Specifically, you talk about when our genius energy can be overused or underused in certain situations, because it sounds really weird that this genius energy that we all have, again, this is a unique thing for us, and it can be overused, right? It sounds like we should be, you know, spraying out that genius energy everywhere, you know, but it can be overused, and we see some ramifications of that. And also, and I think a little bit more logical for my mind, is being underused.
Yeah. Okay, so we can all think about that friend that has a genius at whatever their genius is. And are there times when that genius becomes a problem for them?
Yeah.
Right? So even self-help or self-awareness, you overused, your self-awareness could turn a little bit into self-absorption. You know, you're like reading every self-help book. It's all about self and it's a selfiness, and you do anything.
Can't stop taking selfies.
Stop taking selfies and posting about your self-help situation. That anything can turn into too much, right? This is Jungian's, you know, every strength is, you know, every shadow has a strength. But oftentimes what we can do as well is that we can play small. We can hide parts of ourselves, and there are parts of ourselves that, at least for me, so one of my geniuses that I figured out over time is I'm extremely emotionally sensitive. And when I was a little girl, that emotional sensitivity meant like I could feel everything that was happening at the Thanksgiving table. Like I knew who was drinking. I knew who was getting a divorce. I knew who was mad at who, right? And it was all eyes out, like so sensitive that I was picking up on everything. That way of being was a problem for me. But then the swing of that was also a problem for me when I decided to shut all of my emotional sensitivity down by starving myself, right? So if you turn off your interoceptive awareness system by turning off your hunger, you get this side benefit. You turn off all of your inner world. You turn off your emotions. I was like a void from my head down. I had no connection to my body because I learned how to turn off my emotional sensitivity, you know? And that's a problem as well. So how do we identify what our genius energy is? Again, your je ne sais quoi. And then you kind of use it in the right amount. I figured out a path for that, a place for that as a therapist. It's a really good fit for me. You want an emotionally sensitive therapist, right? But then you also don't want a therapist that's like, every time you cry is sobbing on the couch with you, you know? So I learned the practice of one eye in and one eye out.
Yeah.
You know, I can toggle into how's Shawn doing? Like I'm tracking you, Shawn. I'm tracking you because that's my emotional sensitivity. Like, how's he doing over there? And then how am I doing over here? One hand on my chest, lower breath in my belly, toggling back and forth. And that's how I've learned how to work with my genius of emotional sensitivity. Someone else needs to work with their genius of being funny. It's great. I was reading your books. You're so funny. But does that ever become a problem? It's like the friend that's funny and is making jokes at inappropriate times. Yeah, that can be a problem for you. Yeah. Or you're avoiding your own emotions by just being funny all the time. No matter what genius you have, it can become your frenemy. So this is the practice of awareness of your strengths. And what we know about strengths and strength spotting is that, everything from, I was just preparing I'm doing a leadership retreat for YPOs for CEOs tomorrow. 45 CEOs tomorrow morning. Today, they have in the Harvard guy that is like the West Point grad, who's like the top of the top. And then tomorrow I come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be smart enough? Are people going to like me? Like Stuart Smiley, that whole bit. So I'm over preparing. And I was reading up on strengths in leadership roles. If you are a leader and you point out the strengths of your employees, you're just highlighting strengths, you can increase their performance by about 30%. If you point out their weaknesses, you decrease their performance by about 29%. Just highlighting strengths in another person improves them. It's like watering a plant. They perk up. And you can do that for yourself with your own geniuses, right? So you can highlight your own strengths and it will help you feel more engaged. It'll help you channel your energy in a way that you feel a little bit brighter. You could do that in the interpersonal situation that you're struggling with, highlight strengths. But you also want to be careful that you do it with wisdom.
Right. You're
not just, tooting everyone's horn all the time. You do it with wisdom. You're channeling it wisely.
This is so good. This is so good. All right. So I mentioned earlier that you have some archetypes and there are many others, but certain forms of genius energy, you kind of gave names to them. Mm-hmm. And I can identify with certain ones very much. And certain ones I was like, oh, this is my wife. So a couple of them that I identify with are the idea generator. Also identify with helping hero, articulator, identify with that as well. But it's the one that jumped out the most was calming force.
Ooh.
And this was based off of my feeling, but also just the feedback from my environment. And the calming force, I'm going to share this, is described as you are the grounding force that people look to when things become chaotic. You can stay calm under pressure, soothe others, and have a measured response when others are losing their cool. This is like, that's me. However, this genius becomes your problem when people interpret your coolness as apathy or when it prevents you from taking action. When it is overused, and this is, I really identify with this part. When it is overused, you spend a lot of energy cutting yourself off from your emotions or trying to keep others calm. Mm. When it is underused, you may not be able to offer yourself the calming force that you need. That, I really felt that. And I had to take a moment and just pause. And again, I'm grateful to be able to kind of identify and to give a name to this experience that I have in the world, and to understand that there's a wise effort way to approach this. This is a blessing that I have this, but to approach this with wisdom and not overuse it or underuse it to the best of my awareness.
Okay, so I'm gonna circle back to that problem that was spaghetti inside of you. Do you think you could have used that calming force energy towards yourself in that moment?
Yep. That's, yeah. I was trying to protect it instead of being that calming force for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was more defensive.
Yeah.
And that's not like me. That's not my typical, but it's just like, again, PTSD is strong label, but just a historical pattern of certain things happening. And then this thing being brought to me after. I want to ask you about this. Would you say, based on your experience and your research, it tends to be easier to fall into unwise effort when our needs are not being met, or we're too stressed, or there's a lot going on?
Oh, yeah. So I have a whole chapter on environment in there. And so the field of psychology has has done a really poor job historically at blaming the individual. So like everything's about you and it's your inner world but there are a lot of contextual factors, stress being one of them, not eating, sleep, not having good sleep, having medical conditions can really impact you, being on medications. I work a lot with clients that are on all sorts of different medications that are impacting their ability to engage in wise effort in a certain situation, right? So absolutely, there are contextual things. There's workplace, there's relationships, there's biology that can get you off track. And that's why we need to attend to all of it. We need wisdom for that too. We need to sort of do I did a bit in the 12 steps a while back when I was like 17, 18 years old. I've done everything, everything under the sun. But I did a bit. And what I always liked from the 12 steps was halt. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Right? Yeah. In here, I talk about heart. Are you hungry? What's happening in your emotional world? Do you need a little activity? Sometimes we're just irritated because we haven't moved. We need to like get up and go for a walk, and then all of a sudden everything shifts, right? I haven't had enough. My body has not moved enough today, and all of that energy is getting pointed into this frustrating situation, right? So HEAR, do I need more rest? And T, what about tension? We know about the physiology of our body. There's a bottom-up processing just as much as there's a top-down processing. Mm. So if your shoulders are up at your ears and you're breathing in the top third of your chest and you're gripping your jaw, you are sending signals to your brain, there is something wrong here. And then your partner comes in the room and you're like, oh, it's them. Right? I mean, there's even research that if you've gotten a poor night's sleep in the morning, you're more likely to judge your partner as mad at you just from a poor night's sleep, right? So physiology impacts how we interpret situations. It impacts how we behave in situations. So we have to pay attention to all of it. Amazing.
Amazing. All right. So we got to remember that acronym for HEART.
Yeah.
So can you repeat it again? So we've got the hunger, emotions.
Mm-hmm. Activity levels. Activity. Do I need some activity? Mm-hmm. R is rest. R is rest. And T is tension, physical tension in my body. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can check in on all of those. And that check-in is, it's something called, it's an interoceptive awareness check-in. It's checking in with your body. Interoceptive awareness is that thing that I said that I lost when I became anorexic, when I just shut off my body. Yeah. But a lot of people are walking heads and they don't have a lot of awareness of their bodies. They don't check in with what's going on inside. And what's fascinating and important about interoceptive awareness is that the more you are aware of what's going on inside of your body, the better decisions you make. They've done studies where they've looked at stock market traders. They perform better in their financial trading. They make more money when they have higher levels of interoceptive awareness. Interoceptive awareness, the higher levels of interoceptive awareness also predict better eating habits. The more you are aware of your hunger and fullness and emotions, you can tell the difference between, am I angry or am I hungry? Sometimes you can't tell that difference. Am I stressed or am I craving? Yeah. You know? And so that process of paying attention to our inner world is very much part of the wise effort process, that sort of checking in and opening up to what's going on inside so that you can be wiser with your actions.
Would you say that more people struggle with interoception today?
Absolutely. Everything's pulling us out of interoception. My aura ring, right? So I could wake up in the morning and I could check in with my body. How am I feeling this morning? Or I can wake up in the morning and I can open my phone and say, how's my sleep score? Right? It's not bad. I mean, I utilize this. I like it. But there's a lot of things that we're using that are pulling us out of our bodies to try and give us metrics for some things that we should also be checking in with our bodies for.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe we use both. We can use our sleep score or we can use our glucose monitor in conjunction. And there's some research out there now, they're starting to look at things like glucose monitoring with appetite awareness. right? In conjunction with, to start to train you to be able to tell that you're hungry because you've lost track. You don't even know if you're hungry or full anymore, right? So you could look at your glucose monitor for that. But there's more things than not that are pulling us out of our bodies. And part of our embodied awareness comes from, yes, emotional awareness, but just time and space to be in our bodies.
Yeah.
So we're not waiting in line anymore. We're in line on our phones. We fill every single margin of our life with something. And without those margins, there's just no room to check in.
Yeah. This would be, I think a great piece of advice would be potentially just set maybe a reminder for yourself to check in with yourself. Yeah. And how powerful is that to be able to have, like, of course, we know proprioception is like awareness of our body in space, this external environment, that relationship. But interoception and knowing what's going on inside of our bodies in our inner world, how valuable is that to like just check in with your body? Like, are my toes happy right now? Or are they feeling a little bit crunched up? What's going on with my gut? How am I feeling with my breathing? What's happening with my heart? Mm-hmm. What's going on? Do I feel pressure or tension in my body? And just checking in. And then you can inquire, why? Why do I feel this way? And start to rekindle that relationship, because your body is the most valuable N of one data feedback, more powerful than any study could ever be. Your body is telling you. And more than ever, like, we need to get some direction to go inward and to pay attention.
What will happen when you do that is you start to rewire the connection. Like anything, what fires together wires together. Mm-hmm. So every time you pay attention to something, you're strengthening that connection. So that it'll become that you don't have to set an alarm to check in with your body. Your body you'll hear the alarms within your body.
Yeah.
Right? I have a lot of awareness around my inner world now, just because I've practiced it so much. I've done so many hours on the mat, so many hours in meditation, so many hours of paying attention to my hunger and fullness to get back to a place of recovery. And now it's become more natural to me again. This was very natural to us many, many, generations ago, right? And as you continue to do that, something else will start to happen, is that you will also develop your intuition. You'll develop your emotional intelligence. You'll be able to tune into, here's another one. So we have proprioception, we have interoception, neuroception. The signaling of another person's body to your body. So Shawn Stevenson is sending me signals through what's happening with his eyes, through what's happening with his shoulders, through what's happening with the speed of his breath. And many of those signals are unconscious. So when we're in a fight with our partner, it's not just the words that are signaling. It's the tone of voice. It's the facial signals. It's the closing off or the opening up. And our body picks that up first through the process of neuroception. This is polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges. So you start to become awareness of your own nervous system. You get better awareness of how other people's nervous systems are impacting your nervous system. And you get a little more like, okay, I'm in the airport. Why do I feel so stressed? Because everyone around me is sending me signals of stress. It was at Starbucks. I don't like Starbucks, but I was at Starbucks, forced to get coffee at Starbucks.
Just to be clear.
I don't go to Starbucks that often, but I was at Starbucks. And the energy of the barista behind the counter, they were so stressed. It was a holiday weekend. I was like picking up the vibes, and then I was feeling so stressed, right? All of that is stuff to be aware of, because then I can tend to my own nervous system. And then I can also be a nervous system that's sending signals to other people's nervous systems. Yeah. Their neuroception can pick up on my slow breathing, or on my smile, or on my openness. So yeah. It's all part of the shift towards wiser efforts.
Ah, that's so powerful. Such a good reminder. We can obviously be influenced, but we can also be the influencer, and we can bring the energy to certain situations. I love that so much. So let's dive a little bit more into one of the ways that our genius energies are kind of cultivated that we might not like when we're going through the thing, but our hardships, our greatest challenges, and us asking ourselves, has the thing that we've gone through that was very difficult in our lives, has that developed certain character traits or certain capacities or gifts that you didn't know you had or that you didn't have previously? Is there any blessing in what you went through? And I love to talk to you about this and how it relates to genius energy.
Well, you mentioned PTSD before. There's another concept in psychology called post-traumatic growth. And it's these qualities that develop out of hardship, post-traumatic growth. They're qualities like a greater sense of spirituality, greater sense of meaning, greater sense of interconnection, and knowing your own strength, right? And so when you go through a hardship, not everyone has post-traumatic growth, right? But for many of us, we do. We can think about, wow, by going through that and getting the other side of that, something happened inside of me that shifted, that I can use now and I can offer to others now, right? We have a tendency to want to bubble wrap ourselves and bubble wrap our kids and protect them. Like I wish, like when my babies came out, I'm like, I just want to bubble wrap you, and like on your first day of school, send you in bubble wrap. But I know now that actually, just like with our immune system, they say like your kid needs to get sick in the first year of life. It's going to be helpful for them. They need to develop immunity. We need to develop resilience and immunity within ourselves. And part of that is some of the geniuses that we develop out of the hardship. And when you see that, when I see that, like with my clients, I see the hardship that they've been through turn into the most amazing things. Like somebody that goes through cancer and then starts, cancer groups for other people. Somebody that I write about, a pet sitter in this book, and how she, as a kid, she experienced a lot of trauma and abandonment. And now her whole mission in life is like abandoned cats and dogs. Like she's like got a genius for animals, right? We all have that. The things that develop out of our hardship. And it's we don't want to go to post-traumatic growth too soon with people. It's a little bit dangerous. It's like a little bit of toxic positivity, but you'll see it naturally emerge.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today if it wasn't for that. Yeah. And I love that label or that framing for it, because it truly did create so much growth and develop. Like, I didn't know that I had all this in me at the time. I grew up in, the most turbulent environment, in the US. Let me be clear. It's different. Growing up in poverty here is different. Like, we still had TV, we still had, we get the Nintendo like a year later, but we still had a Nintendo, but just the violence that was outside of my house and inside of my home, and just the ways of being and how we handle things, handle conflict, and having all of these experiences really make me become so much more self-centered. And it was a survival mechanism. I was trying to keep myself alive, but I didn't know that was cutting me off from the greatest joys in life, which is contribution and love and giving and opening myself up to other people, right? Yeah. And so I didn't know that until I went through my own health issue, and getting a so-called incurable disease diagnosis with my spine, and eventually recovering from that, and not just coming back, but coming back far better than I knew was possible. The side effect of that was I felt so good, I wanted to share it. And people started to ask me for help. And I felt this natural inclination to serve, right? I went from being selfish to serving others. And that's what got me out of bed every day from that moment forward, for years. Like it inspired me in so many different ways. And that's what led me to be here with you now, but at the time it didn't feel good at all. It didn't feel good, sitting in that room by myself, the dark room, this dark room, mattress on the floor, Ferguson, Missouri, on all these medications and in pain. None of that felt good, but being able to find a way out, which was funny enough, and this is the conversation with you, it was by finding a way in. is how I found a way out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so again, for everybody listening, you know, if you're going through a difficult time right now, this isn't to jump into this labeling, you know, but just know that there's so much, you have so much capacity, and there are so many things that are dormant within us. And sometimes these hardships show up to help us to express those things that are dormant and these great gifts that are within us.
Can I say something
Absolutely.
in response to that, Shawn? So violent, use the word violent and chaotic. And the genius that you shared earlier is the calming force. So it makes a lot of sense that you became a calming force, given that an early childhood experience and environment. In my experience of you, how I came here to the Shawn Stevenson, yes, through Katie Bowman, but how I actually came here was with my second child. I experienced really severe postpartum. I mean, you know, you got mental health problems, they're going to show up at times of stress. And I had a stillborn, and then I got pregnant right away, and I had this baby, and I was stuck at home with a baby with colic and a toddler, and it was like the worst. And my husband was trying to help me, and somehow he passed me the Model Health show. And I started, it was the same time I started listening. It's like, this was, my kid's 12 now, so this is 12 years ago. Started listening to Shawn Stevenson, and your voice was the most calming voice to me. It was like, I just want to hear Shawn Stevenson. And then there was Katie, and what Katie was teaching me about how I could move my body without having to go to the gym and be on the treadmill for 45 minutes. So we would listen to Shawn Stevenson and Katie Bowman in our living room. And I'd have like babies crawling on me. And then I found my way to we bought like a battle rope. I have like the club. We started getting to structured water. We were like all Shawn Stevenson all the time. And I remember this is, 4 books ago. I hadn't done any of this stuff. And just what a calming force you were in our household. So you don't know who you're reaching or how you're impacting people just by the sound of your voice.
Yeah.
And if that has come from your own hardship, the tune is so much clearer. It's like, it's not some false tune. It's a true tune of a calming force. And so you've impacted me in profound ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for this conversation, we want to have everybody be able to walk away with some things that they can do. And I'd like to talk about some practices that we can do to help shift from energy that depletes to effort that energizes.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that we can do?
Okay, the first thing you can do is start to notice choice points. Choice points are moments in time when you can either choose to move towards your values or away from your values. Your values are how you want to show up, who you want to be, what matters to you, what you want to represent, right? And a lot of times we get off track. And when we get off track, we beat ourselves up for being off track. And then we're in the hole. It's the man in the hole with his shovel. Dig, 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 dig to try and get ourselves out, right? But a choice point is an opportunity. I've gotten off track. Here's an opportunity. What do I care about here? And how do I prioritize what I care about? What's most important? Just like clear the wreckage and focus your energy on that. The most important thing. And a lot of times it's simple things like the most important thing here is just love. In relationships, how many times I've been in, fights with my partner. And if I just drop the fight and focus on love, how many times I walk into my kid's room, and the other day I found the bottom sports drawer was open, and in the drawer was a bowl with milk in it. He left the bowl with milk from the cereal. I'm like, I want to yell at him. And he was about to leave for a trip. So there was like stuff all over the place. He was about to go on this backpacking trip. What's most important here? The cereal bowl or my son about to go on a backpacking trip and connecting with him before he goes? What's most important here? It's a choice point. So sometimes we'll yell about the cereal bowl and then we'll have that ping of regret. And that regret is just your value system saying, oh, get back on track. So what's one thing you can do? Choice points are powerful. And usually choice points are inside of us, right? They're just inside. When you notice that twinge, like I'm off track, here's a choice point. And if you miss it, there'll be another one. It's like a stoplight. You'll have another one. Don't worry. So that's one thing. Another thing that I use a lot is that probably the most effective thing you can do if you are feeling stuck and you feel like I'm stuck, I'm like, I've tried everything, is to do something different, radically different than what you are doing. My brother-in-law's he's a roboticist. So he designs like the brains of segways and self-flying planes and the robots that go into Afghanistan and look for landmines. And he said that he designed this button into robots called the Get Unstuck button that goes off, it gets deployed when a robot is trapped. And when that button goes off, what this robot does, the Get Unstuck button, is everything in its repertoire. It does a backflip, it runs really hard forward, it jumps up and down, it spins around, it lies down on the floor, it crawls. So usually what we do when we're stuck, and this is a misdirection of our energy, is we just go harder at the same thing. So if you want to get unstuck, do some other things that you haven't tried. Whether you're stuck in, I can't get myself, exercising, or I'm stuck in a relationship pattern, just do anything other than what you're doing and then see what works. And when you do something that works like a tiniest little bit, like the tiniest bit, reinforce that. Reinforce the heck out of it. Keep going at it. And then it'll grow and it'll become a new wise habit for you. That's the evolution. That's behavioral evolution in real time. Variation, selection, and retention. And it's the patterns of evolution across a lifetime, across a species, but also in real time. Variation is key. So do something different.
That's so good. So good. And I could see so many different ways to do it, even just, if you're dealing with something, and again, you just said it, we tend to just do that same thing harder. The Einstein quote is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result, right? And what if you just go to a different environment? Like if you're struggling with something and you're in the house, like maybe even go somewhere you haven't been, like drive a different way. Just that novelty, it activates so much in our brain and our nervous system, right? Or of course, like, you could do something, read a different type of book, like maybe you're really into 50 Shades of Grey type of stuff.
You're dating yourself by bringing up 50 Shades of Grey.
I don't know why I picked that one. I do know why. I was just watching an interview with Marlon Wayans, and he had a parody movie. I think it's called 50 Shades of Black, maybe. And anyway, so that's where that came from. But maybe, you read something different. Maybe you read the Four Agreements, right? You just do something different that you normally wouldn't do. And it is like it's kind of like that Get Unstuck button.
Yeah.
I love that concept so much. Just like I've got so many ideas bubbling up of just like things that you could do to change that pattern.
Yeah. Can I give you one more?
Absolutely.
The last one?
Please.
So a lot of my work prior to this is in the area of compassion and self-compassion. And there's also a practice of tuning in, offering your genius to yourself, yes, and taking care of your feeling. And this really simple practice that a good friend of mine offered to me the other day, which was so helpful, which was such a beautiful example of taking care of your feeling, which was going to that part of you that hurts or that messed up, or that little kid part of you that's still in like the violence and the chaos, but it's like inside of you, or that feels shame. And asking that, I'm going to ask you to ask yourself this week when you had that struggle. What song does that kid want to hear? What song does that person want to hear? And a song will come to you pretty quick. What song, does that part of you want to hear?
That's so crazy. Like this song popped up. I haven't heard this song in a minute.
Yeah.
It's called Someone to Love by John B. and Babyface.
Okay.
That popped right in my head.
Pull up the lyrics for that song.
Okay.
Someone to Love, Babyface. And it's usually like a random song from somewhere. I mean, when I did this, I got Circle in the Sand, Belinda Carlisle from the Bangles. I mean, I hadn't listened to that song since I was in junior high. But the lyrics are coming to you from your subconscious, I swear. Talk about synchronicity. So what do those lyrics say?
All right. So the beginning lyrics say, don't even like to think about it. I don't know what I'd do without it. I only know I live and I breathe for your love. This was a silly conflict with my wife, you know. And go to the chorus. Oh my God. Another lyric is, it's because of you I was able to give my heart again. You give me someone to love. Yeah. It's pretty powerful.
Pretty powerful. So now you got a theme song. You can listen to it on your drive home before you walk in with your wife and see her. Someone to love.
Yeah, I miss her.
Yeah. So we have the capacity to care. We have a whole wise self that's in there, a whole subconscious wise self that's like knows just what's right for us. And sometimes there's creative ways to access it.
Yeah. You're just, before we even got started, you were already helping me, you know, because you already picked up, and I felt comfortable telling you, you know, the little conflict. And something else I didn't say is like, this is birthday season. And we were sharing all the birthdays. Today's my oldest son's birthday. My youngest son's birthday was the beginning of the week. Mine was about a little over a week before that. Her best friend's was a week before that. It's birthday season, and she always gets extra stressed. And it's just
so
like,
when's her birthday? It's not this season, is it?
No, of course
right,
not.
Of course not.
You know, and another one of her friends' birthday. I mentioned, you know, us all going to the restaurant. That was 2 days after my birthday, but another one of her friends' birthday is next week. And so, you know, she's a giver. She loves, that's one of her love languages, you know, and just knowing again that it's that thing. And for me, of course, I'm just like, change the story on this. And that was one of our things that we did talk about. And which I should have recorded, she said, you're right. Which, you know, just like when you're going into this season, you've got to approach this differently, because this always stresses you out to the nth degree. And it never feels good later. Like in the moment, you enjoy the process, but let's approach this different and change the language that you're using with yourself around this, you know? And yeah, so I'm just grateful that I got to talk this out and to see, because sometimes we can get so focused on the small pieces that we don't zoom out and see the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And I was wanting her to do that, but I was doing it in certain ways myself.
Yes.
You know, so I forgot it was birthday season and like, why are you acting up? So yeah, thank you for that as well.
That's wisdom. So if I were your psychologist and I had my little prescription pad and you were a couple in my couples therapy session, I'd prescribe to you some wise effort. Like, contact your wisdom here, Shawn. It's here. It's available to you. It's always available to you. You've got it. Lucky you. You know? And then I'd write on the prescription for your wife some self-compassion. It's birthday season. Give yourself a break. Yeah. And it's not your birthday. That sucks. You know? So she probably could use a lot of that self-compassion and taking care of herself and remembering this is hard because she cares. And her genius is giving. Her genius is creating these incredible children and loving people, and you know, and she can turn that genius around towards herself too. Yeah.
And when you're over giving, sometimes you can forget to give to yourself.
That's right. Genius becomes your problem.
Yeah. This is so awesome. Thank you so much. And again, we're just kind of scratching the surface of what's in Wise Effort. And as of this recording, it's going to be available in bookstores everywhere. Of course, you can go to Amazon, your favorite book retailer. Is there any other places you want people to go and to follow your work or find the book?
Well, if you want to learn more about Wise Effort, you can just go to wiseeffort.com. I have a lot of resources and programs. I have a podcast, and you know, I have other stuff there, like stuff around self-compassion and psychological flexibility, but it's all at wiseeffort.com.
wiseeffort.com. Amazing. This has been such a joy. Thank you so much. You brought me some wonderful gifts, by the way, from your garden. Like we had some new experiences. We had caviar limes before we got started. I just appreciate it so much. You've really helped to fill up my cup today. And I know that a lot of people feel the same. And you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shawn.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here.
You know, you can bring things now to you. That same technology that can entertain you in place can also have things delivered to you. I mean, you can even shop for a house. You can shop for a mate, really kind of by just swiping.